You are not waiting for inspiration. You are negotiating with a ghost. And every time you delay, that ghost takes another piece of your life. The person who is currently draining your energy, the habit that is hollowing you out, the endless scroll that leaves you empty. These are not masterful forces of nature overriding your will. They are broken scripts running on repeat, and you are the only one still reading the lines. You feel it, don't you? That cold knot in the center of your stomach late at night, the sudden, suffocating silence in the room, when the glowing screen finally goes dark, and you are left alone with the crushing realization that another day has passed, and you have remained exactly the same. You are leaking power. You are an empire with unlocked doors, wondering why the treasury is always empty. 2,000 years ago, the most powerful man in the world woke up in a freezing, damp military tent on the frontiers of Germania. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, had every excuse to stay in bed. He had absolute power. He could have ordered the world to wait. Instead, he pulled back the heavy wool blankets, felt the biting cold against his skin, and commanded his own mind to step into the sovereignty of the day. He understood a terrifying, liberating truth. The only empire you will ever truly rule is the space between your own ears. Immovable discipline is not a punishment. It is the absolute refusal to be an unconscious actor in the theater of your own life. It is the architectural reconstruction of your internal world. To build this immovable discipline, you must stop fighting the symptoms and begin hunting the invisible patterns that keep you small. There are 7 fractures in your foundation, 7 signs of the unconscious mind at work, sabotaging your sovereignty. The first fracture is the phantom tomorrow. You know the physical sensation intimately. It is the sudden, heavy drop in your stomach when the alarm shatters the morning silence. It is the overwhelming magnetic pull of the mattress, the deceptive warmth of the blankets, wrapping around you like a cocoon of safety. In your mind, a familiar movie plays out. You open one eye, glance at the glowing red numbers, and tell yourself, just 10 more minutes. I will do the heavy lifting later. I will start the diet, the writing, the business, the deep work tomorrow. Tomorrow is a pristine, untouched landscape where you are infinitely strong and infinitely rested. But here is the surgical truth. Tomorrow is a lie. It is a psychological mirage designed to protect your ego from the discomfort of the present second. The unconscious actor thinks time is a limitless resource. They treat their hours like cheap copper coins, tossing them into the wishing well of the future. The resistance you feel is not physical fatigue. It is a deep, unacknowledged terror of the day's demands. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, and say, and think." The sovereign counter to the phantom tomorrow is the quiet no. When the alarm sounds, you do not negotiate. You do not consult your feelings, because your feelings are currently operating on the script of comfort. You simply put your feet on the cold floor. You break the script physically, before the mind can formulate an excuse. You reclaim the dawn. The second fracture is the friction mirage. You feel this as a shallow, rapid breath and a tight constriction in your chest. When you finally sit down to do the actual work, you stare at the blank document, the messy spreadsheet, or the heavy iron at the gym. Suddenly, the room feels too warm. You need a glass of water. You need to organize your desk. You open 30 different internet tabs to research a minor detail, descending into a rabbit hole of trivial information. You are physically present, but entirely absent. The unconscious mind seeks the path of least resistance, much like water running down a leaky pipe, searching for any crack to escape the pressure. You believe the friction you feel is a signal that something is wrong, that you are not ready, or that the task is too difficult. But understand this: the obstacle is not blocking your path. The obstacle is the path. The difficulty is the exact material required to forge your discipline. Understanding the weakness of your own avoidance is your weapon for detachment, not a reason to sit back and play the role of the overwhelmed victim. You must separate your identity from the temporary sensation of anxiety. The sovereign counter here is the alchemical shift. You do not run from the heavy thing. You reframe it. You look at the tight chest and the blank page, and you say, "This is exactly where the gold is buried." You commit to 5 minutes of uninterrupted, agonizing focus. In doing so, you evaporate the mirage. You discover that the suffering was always in the anticipation, never in the execution. The third fracture is the echo chamber of applause. This manifests as a sharp, dopamine-fueled flutter in your chest, a nervous twitch in your thumb as you reach for your phone. You finish a task, you post a thought, you send a message, and immediately, your entire nervous system hinges on the response. You wait for the ping. You let your internal weather be dictated by the silence or the applause of completely unconscious actors. You walk into a room and instantly morph into whatever shape you believe will garner the most approval. When you do this, you hand the keys to your internal citadel to strangers. You become a puppet, and their fleeting, distracted opinions are the strings. Relying on external validation makes you incredibly fragile. If they can make you feel like a king with their praise, they can execute you with their silence. The manipulator out in the world, the person who strings you along with breadcrumbs of approval, relies on this exact hunger. Differentiate between empathy for their shallow existence and compliance with their games. The sovereign counter is the silent work. You practice doing something profoundly difficult and telling absolutely no one. You let the achievement live and die in the quiet halls of your own mind. You learn to be your own audience. You build a cathedral inside yourself, not a billboard on the highway. The fourth fracture is the emotional hijack. You know this feeling as a sudden, rising heat in the back of your neck, the sharp, impulsive rush of adrenaline when someone slights you, when an unexpected bill arrives, or when a plan violently falls apart. An email arrives from a disrespectful colleague, and within seconds, your entire disciplined morning routine is thrown into the fire. You abandon your deep work to draft a vicious reply. You pace the room. You let the poison spill into your interactions with your family. The unconscious actor believes that because an emotion is intense, it is an absolute truth that demands immediate physical action. They let external chaos dictate their internal architecture. But your emotions are simply weather, passing over the landscape of your mind. They are not the landscape itself. When you react blindly to a provocation, you are allowing someone else to write your script. You are stepping onto their stage and playing the exact role they assigned you. The sovereign counter is the stoic pause. Between the stimulus and your response, there is a microsecond of space. In that space lies your absolute freedom. When the heat rises in your neck, you force a physical stillness. You breathe in the cold air. You look at the situation clinically, like an architect examining a cracked brick. You do not suppress the anger, but you absolutely refuse to let it hold the steering wheel. You respond with cold, terrifying precision. Or you choose the ultimate power move: absolute, unbothered silence. The fifth fracture is the bleeding sieve. The physical sensation is a dull, throbbing ache behind the eyes, a heavy, vibrating exhaustion deep in your bones. It is the sensation of running on a treadmill that is accelerating slightly faster than your legs can carry you. You are at a dinner or on a call, and someone asks for a favor. Before you can even consult your own capacity, the word yes falls out of your mouth. You agree to 3 different meetings. You take on another person's emotional baggage. You start a new side project while your foundational work rots. You tell yourself you are being helpful. You tell yourself you are a high achiever. The brutal truth is that this busyness is the ultimate mask of the coward. It mimics purpose, but it produces only a shallow, fragmented life. By saying yes to everything, you are actively destroying the things that actually matter. You are a bucket with 100 tiny holes, wondering why you can never hold any water. The sovereign counter is the surgical no. Discipline is not just about what you do. It is violently defined by what you refuse to do. You must practice the quiet, unwavering rejection of the non-essential. No is a complete sentence. You do not need to offer an elaborate apology or a theatrical justification. You protect your time with the exact same ruthlessness that a king protects his borders. The 6th fracture is the theater of complaint. The body signal is a sour taste in the back of your mouth, a slumping forward of the shoulders, a hollow deflation of your chest. You construct a masterpiece of victimhood. You build a detailed, beautifully articulated story about why the economy, your manipulative boss, or your childhood has entirely prevented you from succeeding today. This narrative of the wronged is a warm, heavy blanket for the weak. It is a psychological defense mechanism designed to remove the agonizing burden of personal responsibility. If it is their fault, then you do not have to work. If the game is rigged, you do not have to play. But understand the danger of this script. Every time you blame the external world, you voluntarily hand over your power. You reduce yourself to a leaf blowing in the wind. Empathy for your own difficult circumstances must never translate into compliance with failure. The sovereign counter is radical ownership. You strip away the story. You look at the cold, hard facts of the board. You say, the market is terrible. The boss is a tyrant, and the odds are against me. Excellent. What is my next move? You absorb the injustice, metabolize it, and turn it into immovable resolve. The 7th fracture is the hollow perfectionist. The physical sensation is a paralyzing, icy stillness in the hands, a tightening of the throat when it is time to press publish, to make the call, to launch the product. The mental movie is one of endless tweaking. You rewrite the same paragraph 14 times. You adjust the colors on a design for weeks. You plan the workout routine with scientific precision, but never actually step foot in the gym. You convince yourself that you just have high standards. This is the most insidious deception of all. Perfectionism is not the pursuit of excellence. It is a brilliant, socially acceptable disguise for profound terror. It is the fear of being seen, of being judged, of being found wanting. As long as the project remains unfinished, it remains immune to criticism. It remains perfect in the realm of potential. But potential is a ghost. Marcus Aurelius did not sit in his tent, trying to write the perfect philosophical treatise for publication. He wrote his Meditations as raw, messy commands to his own soul. The sovereign counter is imperfect action. You force yourself to ship the work. You allow it to be flawed. You accept that to be human is to be inherently messy and incomplete. You measure your discipline, not by the flawless nature of the outcome, but by the relentless, unyielding courage of the execution. You step into the arena covered in dust and sweat, leaving the pristine critics in the stands where they belong. Look inward for a moment. Why was your gate left open in the first place? What part of you secretly believes you are not allowed to be ruthless with your time? We undergo this shadow pivot to expose the root of the leak. You negotiate with your own internal chaos because somewhere in your past, you were taught that compliance was safer than sovereignty. You learned to trade your absolute power for temporary comfort. You chose the numbing scroll over the agonizing climb because it asked nothing of you. But you are realizing now the staggering cost of that comfort. It has cost you your self-respect. It has cost you the life you know you are capable of commanding. The pain of discipline is sharp, acute, and fleeting. The pain of regret is a dull, eternal ache that hollows you out from the inside until there is nothing left but a shell of what could have been. You are the architect. It is time to rebuild. Imagine your mind as a vast, ancient estate. For years, you have let wanderers, thieves, and merchants walk freely through the grand halls. You have allowed your own worst impulses to throw loud, chaotic parties in the courtyard. You have been a host to your own destruction. But today, the sovereign returns to the estate. Your life is a garden, walled and secure. You are not a helpless observer. You are the gatekeeper. Immovable discipline is the quiet, terrifying power of standing at that iron gate and deciding exactly what is allowed to cross the threshold. When the phantom tomorrow comes whispering, you lock the gate. When the echo chamber of external validation begs for entry, you turn your back. When the manipulators and the chaotic actors demand your energy, you look at them with cold, compassionate discernment, and you deny them access. You do not fight the chaos out in the world. You simply refuse to let it take root in your soil. You wake up in the cold, dark. You embrace the friction. You do the silent work. You pause before the storm. You say no to the trivial. You take absolute ownership of the board. You act with raw, imperfect courage. This is not a temporary motivation. Motivation is a cheap spark that dies in the wind. This is the permanent rewiring of your identity. You are no longer the victim of the script. You are the author. Guard your citadel. Hold the line. The empire is yours.